What consequences will State Rep Larry Householder face after being charged in a bribery scheme? We'll hear what the Ohio House Speaker has to say about it. And soon, Ohioans 16 and older can get the COVID-19 vaccine, the state's vaccine rollout, and a look at how demand is matching with supply. And the bill that would limit the governor's power. We are going to hear from a lawmaker behind that piece of legislation. And we do thank you for joining us for Face the State today. I'm Tracy Townsend. The big question in Ohio politics this morning: what's next for Representative Larry Householder? Nothing was decided during House sessions this week. The representative was at the House session on Wednesday. In fact, just one day after Republican leaders in the Ohio House held a caucus meeting to talk about whether to bring a motion to the House floor to expel Republican Larry Householder. That motion didn't happen. Householder is charged in connection to a $60 million bribery scheme to save two power plants. And in regards to Householder, Speaker Bob Cupp says he can't comment on the case.
I have called on him repeatedly and consistently that he should voluntarily resign. That would be the honorable thing to do.
Now, Cupp would not comment on any potential next steps, citing a longstanding policy about not talking about internal caucus communications. He says for Householder to resign would be the best thing for the chamber. Four others also charged in the bailout bribery scheme. One of those people was found in Florida, dead this week. Both the Collier County Medical Examiner and the Sheriff's Office confirmed that Neil Clark was found dead Monday by a passerby in the Naples, Florida area. Clark's wife reported they were having financial issues. Deputies also recovered a gun at the scene. Clark's attorneys said his death was a tragic loss and added that he thought his client might eventually be acquitted of the federal charge against him. Soon, every Ohioan who's 16 and older will be able to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Governor Mike DeWine announced the big jump in the rollout this week. A few days ago, eligibility opened up to anyone 40 and older and those with cancer, chronic kidney disease, COPD, heart disease, and obesity. On March 29th, anyone can get the shot is allowed to get the shot. The problem comes with getting an appointment. 10 TV's Angelo Reigert looks at where the state supply of doses stands.
By March 29th, all Ohioans over the age of 16 will be eligible to get a COVID-19 vaccine. That's the upside. The downside?
Undoubtedly, there are going to be times when people go to sign up and they have to wait, a little longer to get a spot in line.
The state's top doctor says Ohio's vaccine supply is growing with expanding eligibility. The hope is with more people eligible, more people will roll up their sleeves.
We're having a hard time filling those appointments, and I think this will just allow us to fill the appointments quickly, get the vaccine out as quick as we can, and get more people vaccinated.
In Licking County, about 150,000 residents will be eligible for vaccines by the end of the month. So far, the county has given out about 37,000.
We got a ways to go if everybody wants it, but we're prepared, we're ready, and we're ready to give it to whoever needs it.
At Columbus Public Health, they've provided about 65,000 vaccines so far.
I think there are multiple opportunities for people to get the vaccine in our community now, many more than there were, say, 6 weeks ago.
But even so, you're likely to have to wait.
Will everyone who's eligible be able to get the vaccine during that first week that they're eligible? No.
Some places are letting you book your vaccine appointment ahead of when you're eligible. Others are not. You have to just check and see. Either way, most places aren't booking people too far in advance.
The last thing I want to do is schedule 1,000 people, then have to call them all and say, sorry, we don't have vaccine for you.
Adults like to ask, will I be able to pick my vaccine? That also depends. Most places tend to get one brand more than others. You can look around for the one you want, but does it really matter?
As a doctor, I am very supportive of any Ohioan choosing any of these three vaccines because from my point of view, they all get the job done.
Reporting in Columbus, Angela Reigard, 10 TV News.
Mass vaccination sites are being used all over the state to help get people vaccinated. One is happening right now at St. John Arena in Columbus. 10 TV's Olivia Eugenio spoke with a few people who rolled up their sleeves.
More than 12,500 people in just 4 days. It sounds like a lot.
Actually, it was pretty smooth. It was very organized. Got in, got out.
John Williams was just one of the thousands on Thursday to get the first dose of his vaccine.
It's one step away from protecting others, especially seniors and people I'm in contact with on a daily basis.
He, along with Beth Donaldson, rolled up their sleeves to help protect themselves as well as others.
I'm very excited. I miss my friends.
Is that what this means to you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Zoom calls are good, but hugs are better.
Kroger is administering the vaccine at St. John Arena. The arena is one of the 2 clinics the grocery store chain is hosting in Ohio. There is another in Cincinnati. Combined, they're hoping to administer more than 25,000 vaccines.
It is a mass effort. It's all hands on deck. We have anywhere from 50 to 60 Kroger pharmacists completing registration and vaccination, and it's really a group effort.
Unfortunately, all of the slots at St. John Arena are full, but Kroger says just keep checking back.
But we do encourage people to check the website back frequently in order to see if anyone's had cancellations. We will put those appointments in the remaining days.
Vaccinations will continue at St. John Arena throughout the weekend. Olivia Eugenio, 10 TV News.
There are several other mass vaccination sites open across the state. Those will be coming soon. If you'd like to sign up for one of those, you can see them on the screen. We are going to show you how to do that. Just go to our website, 10tv.com. Now, when it comes to vaccinating minors, parents have a choice. Kids need their parents' permission to get the shot. There are a few states that do allow exceptions for some minors, but our state is not one of them. However, parents don't necessarily need to be in the room with their kids during their appointment.
A parent does not need to be present at the time of vaccination, but a signature is required, providing that parental permission. And then our pharmacists are taking additional steps to ensure the permission is valid.
And again, 16 and 17-year-olds become eligible in Ohio for the COVID-19 vaccine on March 29th. To find out how your county is distributing the vaccine, text the word vaccine to 614-460-3345, and you'll get the information sent straight to your phone. We expected to get more guidance this week from Governor DeWine about gatherings like proms, graduations, but he said there's not much to say besides keep limiting them. And that's because the governor says he needs to make decisions based off the numbers and the science. He knows last year it was difficult for many school districts across the state not being able to have proms and graduations in the traditional sense. As for any guidance he might give on these types of gatherings, he says it comes to no surprise. It's much of the same as what he's been talking about over the past year.
Today, the advice is and would be wear a mask. Everybody needs to wear a mask. If you're talking about graduation, you can figure out how to do it outside. It's obviously going to be safer outside than inside, but try to keep the distancing and just follow all the practices, frankly, that we have learned in the last year.
Now, the good news is here that the governor says unless something drastic happens and our numbers significantly, get much worse, events like prom and graduation should be able to take place. So there's some hope in that. Graduation will look more traditional for The Ohio State University. The school announced plans for in-person spring commencement at Ohio Stadium. However, because we are still in a pandemic, the ceremony will be modified. 2 guests can accompany each graduate, and social distancing will be observed. This will be Ohio State's first non-virtual commencement since late 2019. Ohio lawmakers want to change graduation requirements for high school seniors. They passed House Bill 67. Now it needs Governor DeWine's signature. The bill allows juniors and seniors to sub their end-of-year grades for the statewide final exams. The bill also waives the American History exam requirement. It allows schools to spend extra time administering all federally required tests and exempts homeschool kids from yearly evaluations. New proposed legislation targets Ohio's mask mandate. State Rep. Jenna Powell recently introduced it. It would end the mandate and stop Governor Mike DeWine from issuing another one unless the General Assembly approves. 24 other Republicans have signed on as co-sponsors of this bill. Governor DeWine has already said he plans to veto it if it passes. Remember, the governor has set a goal. Once Ohio reaches just 50 cases for every 100,000 Ohioans, he will lift the health orders. The last update we received reported 143.8 cases per 100,000 Ohioans. And to give you a bit of perspective on that, 2 weeks ago, that number was at 180. Last Thursday, it dropped to 155. The governor says the continued decrease is a remarkable sign of improvement, but it's not over.
It wasn't too long ago that we were up in the 700s. So again, we're making progress. The battle has to be fought every single day. We need to keep wearing our masks. We need to keep getting vaccinated and try to drive this virus down.
The political fight over health orders has been going on since the very start of the pandemic, and it continues with Senate Bill 22, which would allow lawmakers to strike any public health orders with which they disagree. 10 TV's Kevin Landers talked with one of the lawmakers behind the bill.
There's a lot of concern that this bill is actually going to harm Ohioans, that it will prevent the governor from making decisions that need to be made immediately rather than have them debated in front of the legislature. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that criticism is unfounded because that's not in the bill. The governor still has full authority to do any order or rule that the governor so chooses. Any governor in the future, a governor could have a rule saying guns are a health epidemic and I'm coming up to get your guns. You might say it's unconstitutional, but then there's been questions about constitutionality in this past year. The point is that the governor has the ability to do rule and order making authority, okay, emergency rules. This puts in a process now that we can take a look at that from the legislature. The legislature over the past 100 years has given the governor that authority to do these certain things, and now we're putting guardrails in those after we've seen how that authority has been used without the Ohio legislature in the last year.
Is this unconstitutional?
No, and the reason is we gave the governor the power, the governor's office, the executive branch, the power and authority to put forward, okay, these orders and rules. We could take them away. Completely take them away with a bill. Instead of doing that, we're saying, listen, we understand the need for quick action by the governor on certain issues. We also understand the need for the legislature to get involved, okay, and review this in a transparent process, review these orders, and decide whether we need to go forward with them or whether they become overtly political or whether they're dangerous or whether they're unconstitutional. We get to make all those types of decisions as a legislator. We gave him that power. So the argument is that we have to stop every single order by the director of Department of Health through a law. No, we had a law that gave the director those powers. Now we're putting guardrails. We're saying you have these powers, governor, you have these powers, director of Department of Health, and now we're encapsulating them in the 1, 2, and 3. Oh, down here at 10, we may rescind them with a concurrent resolution. It goes into the law. That's why we have to have 60 votes to make this law so we can come back and do concurrent resolutions. And that's why I heard somebody say, well, we could do concurrent resolutions now. No, because there's nothing in the law that says that we can stop a rule. There's nothing in the law that says we can stop a rule or an emergency rule or an order by concurrent resolution. With this, SB 22, there will be.
Senate Bill 22 passed both the Senate and the House. Governor DeWine has promised to veto it. The pandemic left thousands of Ohioans without work, and more people continue to file for unemployment benefits. The system apparently thought it was dealing with issues of fraud. Last week, Ohioans filed 115,174 initial jobless claims. 20,000 are flagged for potential fraud. The week before, Ohioans filed 128,161 initial jobless claims. 19,000 of those claims are also flagged. Making women shine bright in political leadership. Next, my conversation with the Matriots and how they are leading women to a seat at the table. Women in political leadership are making significant gains, from the Vice President of the United States to township trustee boards. Political Action Committee, the Matriots, says there's room to make that tent wider. I talked with their development director this week about their nonpartisan strategy to get more women in governing ranks at all levels, even in the current partisan political climate.
It feels like a concept that on one hand is obvious and on the other needed to be identified and needed to be raised up, right? So I think that, like me, a lot of people found the Matriots and decided that that would be their first reason to write a check in politics. But for many, many more people, they've been writing checks for a very long time, and maybe they've even been very dedicated to one party or the other. But this concept of focusing on women in a shared values sort of way has really moved people to make the pie bigger, not to make decisions, but to give in both ways.
What is it about the nonpartisan part of this? I mean, I think we're in a time we're coming out of, we may still be in a time where everything is very partisan, but I'm old enough to remember when, you know, people in politics were friendly to each other because they were working together to get to something.
Exactly. And I grew up in Nebraska. I think about Bob Kerrey was a Republican and Ben Nelson was a Democrat. And I am not aware that they disagreed about much, right, as they were serving in the Senate. So yes, this is an interesting moment to be trying to be a nonpartisan organization that's building the big tent in the middle, but at the same time, somebody has to focus on it, right? If there are only opportunities to be involved in politics at the margins, then the margins are going to get louder and louder and stronger. We have to be able to not just find, but make and invest in places where some dialogue can happen again, where there is such a thing as a centrist. And so I think that it's not going to be a movement that can fix what's happened over the last 4 to 40 years, depending on how you think about when this discord began, right? But it's a place to start, and I think it's necessary to think about it as a long game.
And how do you do that in a state such as Ohio, which is, according to the last presidential election, is very red? So there's already a point of view in this state.
Yeah, and I think I have a lot of high hopes about what this state might really be if redistricting goes in the direction of truly fair districts this year. I think that what you see happening in voter trends and what you see happening at the State House or who we're sending to Washington, right, is the result in part of the way we draw those political maps. And so the opportunity in 2021 to redraw them may give us something that looks a little bit more purple, which was our reputation for a very long time, right? We were a battleground state. But I think to your question about how it affects the movement of the Matriots, again, I think this is the opportunity to think about finding moderation, about building places where, in particular, women who tend to collaborate more with the other party anyway, can come together under a shared values system and really begin to move policy forward and think harder about what it is that their individual constituents need, whether it's in a school board seat, right, or it's at the county attorney level. I think there's something to the very grassroots, very local nature of what the Matriots is really focused on that can allow people to think, well, what's happening in my backyard, as opposed to what is happening in Washington, and the disconnect that you sometimes feel.
All right, so here is some of the success the Matriots is celebrating from the years 2018 to 2020, nearly 180 general election endorsements, a 58% win rate, and 161 women endorsed, some twice, and 99 wins. President Joe Biden will visit Columbus on Tuesday. It's part of his Help is Here tour. The president, vice president, and their spouses are traveling the country, telling people the details of that $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package. You can count on 10 TV to cover Biden's visit. Look for coverage on air and online starting Tuesday morning. There's still another year to go until the fight for Senator Rob Portman's seat hits full speed. And there's already a frontrunner in the Democratic Party, but this person hasn't even officially announced that she's running. I'm talking about former Ohio Department of Health Director Dr. Amy Acton. This week, Public Policy Polling released a new poll focused on the race for Portman's seat. It showed Acton has the highest favorability of potential Democratic candidates, with 64% of Ohio Democratic primary voters viewing her favorably. No Democratic candidates have officially thrown their hat into the ring for Portman's seat, but several people have mentioned that they are considering a run, and that includes Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley, Franklin County Commissioner Kevin Boyce, Franklin County Recorder Danny O'Connor, and State Representative Amelia Sykes. Former Ohio Treasurer Josh Mandel and former Ohio Republican Party head James Timken are two Republicans who already announced that they will run. Now, when could we see a fourth vaccine distributed in the U.S.? Next, where AstraZeneca's version of the vaccine is in the process here, and the criticism it's received in Europe. Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and Pfizer vaccines are all available in the United States. The AstraZeneca vaccine could soon be approved in our country, but there are some concerns in other parts of the world about this vaccine and blood clots. The European Union's Drug Regulatory Agency announced that benefits outweigh the possible risks. More than a dozen nations stopped using it. Jason Puckett looks at why AstraZeneca's vaccine is taking some criticism.
We're talking about the AstraZeneca vaccine for COVID-19 and reports that countries have stopped administering it because of blood clots. Why are we talking about this? Well, dozens of articles and social media posts question whether there's a link between the AstraZeneca vaccine and blood clots in recipients. This can create fear, so let's verify. Have countries stopped administering the AstraZeneca vaccine, and what does that mean for us? Our main sources for this verify are the World Health Organization, the European Medicines Agency, or EMA, and the CDC. So let's start with what we do know. The European Medicines Agency reports 30 cases of blood clots forming in people who received the AstraZeneca vaccine. That's led 5 countries, Denmark, France, Germany, Ireland, and Italy, to put a temporary pause on administering the AstraZeneca vaccine. So yes, 5 countries have temporarily stopped giving out this AstraZeneca vaccine. But if you stop there, you're missing a big part of the story. While the EMA acknowledges the 30 cases, they point out that's 30 cases out of nearly 5 million people who received the vaccine. They say, quote, "There is currently no indication that vaccination has caused these conditions. The vaccine's benefits continue to outweigh its risks, and the vaccine can continue to be administered while investigation is ongoing." So what does this mean for us? Well, right now, not much. The AstraZeneca vaccine is still in phase 3 trials here in the US and hasn't been approved for distribution. Put simply, you can't even get one of these vaccines in the US right now. Bottom line, yes, at least 5 countries have stopped administering the AstraZeneca vaccine. That's verified. The question of whether the vaccines are actually linked to these blood clots is still unanswered, but we do know the AstraZeneca vaccine has not been approved in the US at this point. With your Verify, I'm Jason Puckett.
And I contacted the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center about the AstraZeneca vaccine and the side effects. You'll recall they are running a trial there. They provided a statement that says enrollment in the AstraZeneca clinical trial at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center was completed in January, with monitoring of patients continuing over the next 2 years. Ohio State has not reported any cases of trial patients with blood clots. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Remember, if it affects you, your family, and Ohio, we're here to make sure those accountable face the state.